Welcome, my dear guests, to the captivating expanses of my story. Chapter 17, 2215. Sevia Heimber gazed out the window of her imperial limousine at the passing streets of Xanadu. After the turbulence of the past year, she was looking forward to the welcome distraction of the graduation ceremony at the Imperial University. It had become a cherished tradition to personally inspire and encourage the graduates to work for the good of the empire. Seated next to her were Myra Gupta and her adopted daughter Nadine. Sevia noticed Nadine had become much more reserved since the incident last year. The usually passionate advocate of the Helix teachings had become noticeably more moderate in her opposition to dissenters. As the limousine came to a halt in front of the university's imposing main building, Sevia saw a group of men and women in elegant business suits. She immediately recognized the representatives of some of Kasach's larger megacorporations. Their presence at this year's graduation ceremony was unusual and piqued Sevia's curiosity. "Interesting," she murmured as she got out. Myra followed her gaze and nodded in understanding. Myra leaned closer to Sevia, her voice barely more than a breath. "The corporation seemed to have a growing interest in our graduates," she whispered, her eyes roaming briefly over the group of businessmen. "Perhaps they see this as an opportunity to expand their influence." She hesitated for a moment before adding, "We should be vigilant. Their ambitions could hold both opportunities and risks for the empire." Sevia smiled diplomatically as she approached the group. She greeted each representative with a firm handshake and a friendly nod. The atmosphere was polite, but Sevia sensed an underlying tension. As they entered the auditorium, the excited buzz of thousands of graduates filled the room. Sevia took her place on the stage, flanked by Myra and Nadine. The representatives of the megacorporations sat in the front row, their eyes fixed intently on the stage. The dean of the university took to the podium and welcomed those present. He spoke of the past year's achievements and the challenges ahead. He then announced Sevia, who stood up and walked to the podium. Sevia let her gaze wander over the expectant faces of the graduates. She felt the weight of responsibility on her shoulders and pride in the young people in front of her. "Dear graduates," she began, her voice clear and firm. "You are on the threshold of a new era. An era that your ideas, creativity, and commitment will shape." Sevia let her gaze wander over the expectant faces of the graduates before fixing her eyes on the representatives of the megacorporations in the front row. She recognized the striking features of Dr. Eliza Chen, the CEO of AGISCorp, whose calm gray eyes returned the Imperatrix's gaze. Next to her sat Olga Petrov of AstroMine Industries, her tan skin a testament to numerous expeditions to distant asteroids. Dr. Akira Tanaka from CyberLink Technologies stood out with his eye-catching cyber augmentation, which quietly whirred and synchronized his brain waves with his surroundings. Next to him was the imposing figure of Dr. Gabriel Santos, the visionary behind EcoSphere Solutions, whose green tie symbolized his environmental mission. Sevia nodded imperceptibly at Dr. Sophia Lindholm from NeoGen Pharmaceuticals, whose flawless appearance reflected the perfection of her genetic research. At the end of the row sat Dr. Marcus Eisenberg, the brilliant head of Quantum Dynamics, whose restless gaze seemed to scan the surroundings as if searching for hidden secrets of the universe. The Imperatrix paused momentarily to ensure that each company representative noticed her attention. It was a subtle play of power, a silent communication that spoke more than 1,000 words. "In recent years," Sevia continued, her voice firm and clear, "we have overcome significant challenges together and made remarkable progress. Our expansion into space, our technological breakthroughs, and our growing economy are a testament to the strength and ingenuity of our people." She paused briefly and glanced around the row of company representatives again. "We owe much of this success to the fruitful collaboration between our academic institutions, the government, and the private sector. Each of you," she nodded to the graduates, "will have the opportunity to contribute to and further strengthen this partnership." The representatives of the megacorporations visibly moved forward in their chairs, their attention now entirely focused on Sevia. She sensed the tension that suddenly filled the room, the unspoken promise of opportunity, and the subtle warning against overambition. "But let us never forget," Sevia's voice took on a serious tone, "that our primary goal is the welfare of our people and the security of our empire. Every technological advance, every economic achievement must serve this goal." Dr. Chen of AGISCorp leaned back slightly, a barely perceptible smile playing around her lips. Olga Petrov of AstroMine nodded in agreement while Dr. Tanaka of CyberLink tapped his cybernetic fingers rhythmically on the arm of his chair. Sevia continued, carefully weighing her words. As future leaders, scientists, and innovators, you have a great responsibility. You will make decisions that will affect not only your own lives but the lives of millions. I urge you to take this responsibility seriously and always keep the bigger picture in mind. Decree of the Imperial Senate, extension of the tradition of progress. Date: January 23, 2215. The Imperial Senate of Kasach has decreed an expansion of the tradition of progress to include the aspect of openness. This monumental decision can forever change the Empire of Kasach and its cosmic connections. Key points. 1. Imperatrix Sevia Heimber declared, openness is the key to an uncertain future. 2. The Imperium will no longer remain in self-imposed isolation. 3. Kasach will boldly open itself to the vastness of the galaxy. 4. The Empire eagerly welcomes fascinating cultures and advanced technologies beyond its borders. 5. The decision was made by an overwhelming majority after a passionate debate. Imperatrix's statement. We can no longer remain in our self-imposed isolation. We boldly open ourselves to the galaxy's vastness, embrace its fascinating cultures and advanced technologies, and learn from them. Today, we have taken a giant leap into the depths of a glorious future. Let us tread this path with unwavering courage and unyielding determination. This decree marks a historic moment, signaling that the Empire of Kasach is ready to embark on a new galactic exploration and cultural exchange path. The Imperial Senate of Kasach vibrated with excitement. Senators from all factions crowded into the time-honored halls, their faces tense with anticipation. The air crackled with tension as Imperatrix Sevia Heimber entered the room. Sevia strode to the podium with a dignified bearing. Her long, dark hair was pinned up in a complex hairstyle adorned with the diadem of the Empire. Her piercing blue eyes swept over the assembled crowd before she began to speak. Honorable members of the Senate, Sevia's voice echoed through the hall. We stand on the threshold of a new era for our beloved Empire of Kasach. The senators fell silent, all eyes on the Imperatrix. Sevia continued, her words carefully chosen. For generations, we have dedicated ourselves to progress. But today, I propose extending our tradition, to include the aspect of openness. The crowd murmured. Some senators nodded in agreement, others frowned. Sevia raised her hand placatingly. Openness is the key to an uncertain future, she explained, her voice carried with conviction. We can no longer remain in our self-imposed isolation. We boldly open ourselves to the galaxy's vastness, embrace its fascinating cultures and advanced technologies, and learn from them. The Imperatrix's words sparked a passionate debate. Senators rose from their seats, their voices filling the hall with arguments and counterarguments. Myra Gupta, leader of the Citizen Elite Union, stepped forward. Her Majesty speaks wise words, she said. Openness will open up new opportunities to strengthen our economy and expand our technological knowledge. Nadine Heimer, leader of the Conclave of Exalted Clarices, rose from her seat. Her voice trembled with anger. Your Majesty, consider the dangers. Our genetic purity, our sacred heritage, we put it all at risk if we open ourselves to the stranger. Sevia watched Nadine with a calm gaze as unrest rippled through the hall. Some senators nodded in agreement, while others shook their heads disapprovingly. Rita Griffin from the Homo sapiens dominance faction took the opportunity to speak. We must not jeopardize our supremacy. Openness, yes, but only under strict control. We must ensure that we retain the upper hand. The debate swelled, and arguments clashed like cosmic tides. Sevia watched the proceedings with an impassive expression, her gaze gliding over the heated faces of the senators. Paulina Romero, spokeswoman for the One Throne supporters, stood up. Her voice cut through the commotion. Consider the military implications, Your Majesty. Openness carries risks but also opportunities. We could bolster our arsenal with alien technology. Sevia nodded thoughtfully as she considered the various points of view. The tension in the room was palpable, and electrifying energy filled the air. Myra Gupta retook the floor, her voice calm and firm. Progress requires courage. We can't stay in our comfort zone forever. Openness will take us to new heights. The debate raged on, minutes stretched into hours. Arguments were exchanged, and compromises were proposed and rejected. Sevia observed everything with a keen eye, weighing every word carefully. Finally, the Imperatrix raised her hand. The voices immediately fell silent. All eyes turned to her expectantly. "We have heard the arguments from all sides," Sevia spoke, her voice firm and clear. "It's time for a decision. Let's take a vote." A murmur went through the chamber. Senators exchanged nervous glances as the voting machines were activated. The tension was palpable as the votes were counted. Sevia watched the incoming results on her holo display. As the final count appeared, her face betrayed no emotion. She announced the result in a calm voice, with a narrow majority of 51 to 49%, the Senate has voted in favor of expanding our tradition to include the aspect of openness. A sigh of relief went through the hall, followed by cheers and protest. Sevia raised her hand again to command calm. "The decision has been made," she declared. "As of today, the realm of Kasach opens to the galaxy. May we proceed with wisdom and caution." Rita Griffin stood before the antique terminal, her eyes shining with excitement. The faint glow of the screen bathed her face in a bluish light and reflected in her glasses. The ancient Nine-Ardian technology hummed softly, a testament to its fantastic longevity. "Incredible," Rita murmured as her fingers glided carefully over the strange symbols. The excellent, smooth surface of the terminal vibrated slightly under her touch. "After all these millennia, it still works. The Guardians must have been true masters of technology." Dr. Lian Chen stepped up beside her, his brow furrowed in concentration. His eyes flitted over the displays, analyzing every detail. "The signal it's sending. It's aimed directly at the 34 Ceti system. The precision is remarkable, despite the cosmic shifts over the millennia." Rita nodded slowly, her mind already processing the implications. Her fingers drummed unconsciously against her thigh, indicating her restless thoughts. A connection between the systems that we didn't know about before. What could the Nine-Ardians have left there? An outpost? A colony? Or something completely unexpected? She turned to her crew, who were gathered tensely around the terminal. The bluish light from the screen cast ghostly shadows on their faces. Each reflected a mixture of awe and curiosity, some eyes shining excitedly, others narrowing with concentration. Rita felt the responsibility weighing on her shoulders, an almost tangible burden. She knew that her next decision could have far-reaching consequences, not only for her mission but possibly for the entire Empire of Kasach. After a moment of thought, she spoke, "I believe we have discovered all we could here. It's time to save these findings and pass them on." She activated her communication device and contacted the CITES administration. "This is Research Minister Rita Griffin. This order will turn this excavation site into a cultural exploration site." As she spoke, Rita oversaw her crew pack the delicate artifacts. Dr. Chen coordinated the security of the data from the terminal, and his movements were precise and methodical. "We must learn from the past," Rita continued, her voice carried with conviction. "This site could be the key to understanding the Nine-Ardians, and perhaps even our place in the universe." The air in the excavation site vibrated with energy, a mixture of ancient technology and the explorer's excitement. Rita felt her heartbeat quicken as she realized the magnitude of her discovery. She turned back to the terminal, her eyes fixed on the pulsing signal being sent into the depths of space. The rhythmic flashing almost hypnotized her, a silent call from a bygone era. Whatever the Nine-Ardians had left behind in the 34 Ceti system was waiting to be discovered. A shiver ran down Rita's spine at the thought of the possible secrets that lay hidden there. But she knew they had to proceed with caution. Any move could alter the fragile balance of the Kasach sector, like a cosmic house of cards that could collapse at the slightest shake. However, it was necessary to remember that excavation sites had to be within their borders before they were allowed to explore them. This was a precautionary measure to ensure that they could explore them undisturbed. Rita rubbed her chin thoughtfully. The bureaucratic hurdles were often frustrating, but she understood their necessity. Even an archaeological discovery could become a political powder keg in a galaxy of unknown dangers and rival powers. She had to find a way to balance science's curiosity with security's demands. On July 12, 2215, the equinox broke through the silence of the Luan Yundi system. Commander Mariana Martin stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the main display. Suddenly, the sensors flickered on. "Commander, we have multiple unknown signatures at the far edge of the system," reported Lieutenant Yuki Tanaka. Her voice vibrated with suppressed tension, her fingers flying over the controls. Mariana leaned forward, her eyes narrowed. "Detailed classification?" Completely unknown, ma'am. Tanaka swallowed audibly. Our database only spits out question marks. The patterns don't match any known species or technology. A paralyzing silence fell over the bridge. Mariana felt her pulse pounding but forced herself to calm down. Projection on the main screen. Full resolution. The holographic display flickered. Several pulsing dots appeared, moving from the hyperlane entry point into the system in a bizarre, almost prancing formation. Their drive signatures seemed to defy all known physics. Try to make contact. All frequencies, all known protocols. Communications Officer Chen worked feverishly at his console. After agonizing seconds, he shook his head in frustration. Nothing, Commander. No response to our transmissions at all. Mariana forced herself to take a deep breath, her mind racing. Initiate a distress call to Kost immediately. Encrypted transmission, highest priority level. They need to know what's going on. Barely an hour later, Imperatrix Sevia Heimber strode with energetic strides through the massive gates of the Imperial Senate on Kost. News of the discovery in the Luan Yundi system had spread like wildfire through the streets of Xanadu, sending the capital into a state of feverish excitement. The magnificent Senate hall seethed with excited murmurs as Sevia entered. Her imposing figure, clad in the shimmering robes of her office, immediately attracted everyone's attention. She silenced the agitated crowd with a single, majestic gesture of her hand, and the sudden silence weighed heavily on those present. Senators, Sevia began, her voice calm but imbued with unwavering authority. We are facing a situation of unprecedented uncertainty. The Ek Equinox has attempted to make contact with an unidentified entity in the Luan Yundi system. The nature of this encounter is so far beyond our understanding. Nadine Heimber, the ascetic representative of the Helix Church, stood up. Her gray eyes sparkled with barely veiled concern. Imperatrix, must we see this as an imminent threat to the genetic purity of our people? Sevia withstood Nadine's scrutinizing gaze and shook her head thoughtfully. It's impossible to say for sure at the moment. It is precisely this uncertainty that has prompted me to call this special meeting. Myra Gupta, the energetic citizens' elite union leader, spoke up. Her voice vibrated with suppressed tension. We must proceed with extreme caution and prudence in this delicate situation. A single misstep could have unforeseeable, even catastrophic consequences. I fully agree with your assessment, Sevia replied with an appreciative nod in Myra's direction. She let her gaze wander over the assembled senators. For this reason, I am making the following proposal to the Senate. We should entrust Lin Juga, our most experienced diplomat, with the delicate task of establishing contact. Her exceptional skills in intercultural communication make her the ideal candidate for this compassionate mission. A murmur went through the hall. Lin Juga was Kostya's youngest diplomat, known for keeping a cool head even in the most delicate situations. Rita Griffin, representative of Homo sapiens dominance, frowned. And what should we call these strangers? Sevia thought for a moment. For now, we'll list them as a CAF threat. Until we know more about their intentions. The Senate agreed to the proposal. Lin Juga was summoned and informed of her mission. While the senators debated, Sevia gazed out of the window at the glittering skyline of Xanadu. She wondered what this encounter would mean for Kostya's future. The Ek Equinox's discovery of unknown entities in the Luan Yundi system on July 12, 2215, caused a wave of excitement and concern in the Empire of Kasach. Commander Mariana Martin and her crew watched with fascination and unease as the strange signatures moved beyond any known flight formation. The Imperial Senate of Kasach vibrated with energy. The air crackled with tension as the senators took their seats. Imperatrix Sevia Heimber entered the chamber, her face a mask of calm determination. She knew that today's decision would shape the fate of her people for decades to come. Honorable Senators, Sevia began, her voice echoing through the room like a distant echo. The Imperatrix let her gaze wander over the assembled dignitaries before continuing. The slow learning project has borne rich fruit, riper and juicier than we could ever have dreamed. We now stand on the threshold of a new era before choosing a new ascension bonus. Let us choose wisely and prudently, for our decision will shape the destiny of Kasach for decades to come. Myra Gupta, the energetic leader of the elite citizens' union, literally leapt from her seat. Her eyes sparkled with enthusiasm as she took the floor. Imperatrix, esteemed colleagues, her voice quivered with conviction. We strongly advocate technocratic progress. Our future, no, our survival in this hostile galaxy, lies in innovation and technological superiority. Only in this way can we arm ourselves against the lurking dangers and assert our rightful place among the stars. Myra had barely finished when Nadine Heimber rose from the conclave of exalted clerics. Her face was a mask of stoic calm, but the fire of faith blazed in her eyes. True strength, she countered in a gentle but unwavering voice, does not come from without but from within. The genetic blessing would consolidate our God-given purity and strengthen our resilience against the temptations and dangers of the cosmos. Only by reflecting on our true nature can we defy future challenges. The debate churned back and forth like a stormy sea, each faction fighting tooth and nail for their preferred bonus. Paulina Romero, the battle-hardened spokesperson for the One Throne supporters, rose to her feet with the precision of a soldier. Her voice thundered through the hall as she argued passionately for military strength. Only a united empire under a strong throne can protect us. She thundered. We must arm ourselves against the dangers out there. Rita Griffin from Homo sapiens Dominance barely waited for Paulina to finish. With flashing eyes and a wild shock of hair, she leapt to her feet, her voice sharp as a scalpel. Colleagues, don't forget who we are. She shouted. Humanity is at the forefront of evolution. It is our right, indeed our duty, to manifest and extend this superiority. This is the only way to ensure our survival in a galaxy of unknown dangers. Sevia observed the discussion. Her thoughts wandered to the old stories, the legends of powerful psionics who could move mountains and sea into the future. She felt the faint flicker of her gift, an echo of that long-gone power. As the debates drew to a close, Sevia stood up. The hall fell silent instantly. Senators of Kasach, she spoke, her voice filled with unwavering authority. I have heard and weighed your arguments. Our strength does not lie in technology, genetics, or military might alone. It lies in our spirit, in the potential that lies dormant within each of us. She paused meaningfully and let her gaze wander over the assembled senators. I propose the Mind over Matter Ascension bonus. Let us unleash the psionic potential of our people. A murmur went through the chamber. Some senators nodded in agreement, others frowned. Sevia continued, this gift has lain dormant within us for generations. It is time to awaken it and use it for the good of all Kasach. The vote followed. Sevia watched as the votes were counted, her heart beating faster. When the result was announced, she breathed a sigh of relief. The Senate had voted by a narrow majority in favor of Mind over Matter. On November 1, 2215, Myra Gupta entered the Imperial Senate of Kasach with measured steps. The high vaulted ceilings of the venerable hall seemed to bear the weight of her message. Senators of all factions fell silent as Myra reached the lectern. She took a deep breath and began her report. Esteemed Imperatrix, esteemed colleagues of the Senate, her voice echoed through the room, I stand before you today to deliver a message of the utmost importance. Kasach, our beloved empire, has reached a significant milestone. The tension in the room was palpable. Myra continued, through our tireless efforts and the influence we have accumulated over the years, we have succeeded in raising the ascension level of our homeworld to level 2. A murmur went through the ranks of the senators. Some nodded appreciatively, others exchanged surprised glances. Myra raised her hand placatingly. This elevation, she explained, dramatically enhances the designation of our capital world. It is a testament to our strength, progress, and position in the galaxy. Imperatrix Sevia Heimber leaned forward on her throne, her eyes sparkling with interest. What tangible effects will this ascension have on our empire, Senator Gupta? She asked. Myra nodded respectfully. Your Highness, the effects will be profound and felt in all areas of our society. We expect a significant increase in our productivity, an improvement in our technological capabilities, and a strengthening of our diplomatic position. She turned back to the entire Senate. Ladies and gentlemen, this rise will not just affect abstract numbers and statistics. We will see changes in our daily lives, from more advanced infrastructures to expanded educational opportunities for our citizens. Senator Nadine Heimber of the Helix Group stood up. And what of our traditions, our genetic purity? Will the ascension jeopardize these? Myra shook her head. On the contrary, Senator Heimber. The debate in the Senate became livelier. Voices were raised, questions were asked, and concerns were voiced. Myra answered each one with patience and conviction. Myra Gupta stood firmly at the podium as the Imperial Senate digested the news of Kostya's rise. The air in the chamber vibrated with energy and anticipation. She watched the various factions whisper, exchange notes, and gesticulate vigorously. Senator Rita Griffin from the Homo sapiens dominance faction stood up. "Senator Gupta," she began, her voice a mixture of respect and skepticism, "how do we intend to use this new status to strengthen our position against potential threats like the Almorans?" Myra nodded appreciatively. "An excellent question, Senator Griffin. The ascension will allow us to expand our defense capabilities significantly. We will be able to develop more advanced weapon systems and modernize our fleet." She paused briefly to choose her following words carefully. "However, we should not forget that true strength lies not only in military might. This advancement also allows us to intensify our diplomatic efforts and possibly forge new alliances." Rita Griffin stood at the observation window of the Ibn Battuta's conference room and stared down at the jagged surface of Plugui. Her gaze slid over the enormous impact craters that covered the planet's crust like scars. The largest of them, a gaping hole 2,000 kilometers across, made her shudder. "Dr. Chen, what did the analyses reveal?" asked Rita, without taking her eyes off the devastation. Dr. Lian Chen cleared his throat. "The data is clear, Commander. Natural impacts did not cause these craters. The energy required to wreak such havoc is beyond anything we've seen before." Rita turned to her science team. The faces of her crew reflected her own concern. "And you're sure these are weapons tests?" "Almost certainly," Chen confirmed. "The even distribution of the craters, their precise shape, it all points to systematic tests. Whoever did this wanted to measure the destructive power of these weapons precisely." Yuki Tanaka, the chief engineer, spoke up. "The kinetic energy released here is almost unimaginable. Our most advanced weapons are like toys in comparison." An oppressive silence fell over the room. Rita felt her stomach tighten. The idea of a civilization that possessed such terrible weapons and used them without scruples was alarming. "Can we determine the age of the impacts?" Rita finally asked, trying to hide her inner turmoil. Dr. Chen nodded slowly, and his eyes narrowed thoughtfully behind his glasses. "Initial estimates suggest an age of several 100,000 years. Precise dating is difficult due to the extreme devastation, but we are working on it. Whoever carried out these tests has almost certainly long since disappeared." "Or has moved on," Rita murmured. The thought made her shiver, and goosebumps spread up her arms. The idea of such a powerful civilization possibly still existing was frightening. She turned back to the window and looked at the scarred surface of the planet. The vast craters stretched like dark memorials to the horizon. What could have driven a civilization to develop such weapons of mass destruction? And what had become of them? Had they wiped themselves out or set out for the stars, armed with the power to destroy entire worlds? "We must pass these findings on to the Imperial Senate immediately," said Rita resolutely, clenching her fists involuntarily. "The implications of this discovery are enormous. It could change everything we thought we knew about our galactic neighborhood. We need to rethink our defense strategies and intensify our research." Listening in silence, Yuki Tanaka spoke up, "I agree, Commander. But we should be careful how we present this information. The news of such destructive weapons could cause panic." Rita nodded seriously. "You're right, Commander. We will prepare a balanced report. Dr. Chen, please check all the data again thoroughly. Don't leave anything out." This discovery, after the exploration of the anomaly, led to the planet Plugui being labeled a scarred planet. It is a fitting name for a world that bore silent witness to unimaginable violence and left the crew of the Ibn Battuta with more questions than answers. The AstroMine Industries boardroom buzzed with excitement as the company's executives gathered for their annual strategy meeting. CEO Olga Petrov gazed across the polished star oak table at the expectant faces of her colleagues. The soft light from the hologram displays bathed the room in a bluish glow, projecting charts and statistics onto the walls. "Ladies and gentlemen," Olga began, her voice firm and determined, "we are at a turning point in AstroMine's history. The cost sector offers us unprecedented opportunities, and we must take advantage of them." COO Klaus Schmidt nodded in agreement and activated a detailed map of the sector with a wave of his hand. "Our operations so far have proven extremely profitable," he explained. "The question now is, how can we further expand our presence?" CTO Dr. Samira Al-Fad leaned forward, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. Graduate recruitment this year has been a huge success. We have attracted some of the most brilliant minds, especially in the field of asteroid mining technology. A board member raised his hand. And what about the competition? AGISCorp has recently expressed interest in the cost sector as well. Olga smiled grimly. That's exactly why we have to act now. I suggest we try to requisition Belarus and Susquehanna. A murmur of disbelief rippled through the room, followed by a tense silence. Klaus frowned, his eyes narrowing into slits. The Imperial construction ships? This is bordering on madness, Olga. The Imperatrix guards these jewels like the apple of her eye. She will never let them out of her hands without anything tangible. Maybe, Olga replied with a mischievous smile emphasizing her determination, but imagine what we could achieve with these technological marvels. We would expand the space infrastructure across the sector at a rate that would dwarf even the boldest predictions. AstroMine could usher in a new era of interstellar expansion. Dr. Al-Fad leaned forward, her eyes sparkling with excitement. The technical possibilities would be nothing short of revolutionary. With the advanced robotic systems and manufacturing facilities of Belarus and Susquehanna, we could conduct mining operations in previously inaccessible systems. Just imagine resource extraction in the depths of neutron stars or the atmospheres of gas giants. Wait a minute, interjected another board member with a worried expression, his voice cutting through the burgeoning euphoria. Have we considered the legal consequences? We can't just misappropriate Imperial ships for our purposes. That could be construed as treason, not to mention the diplomatic turmoil it would cause. Olga raised her hand placatingly. Of course not. I'm thinking of a kind of public-private partnership. We offer our expertise and resources to the Empire in return for access to the ships for selected projects. The discussion became livelier as the board members weighed up the pros and cons of the proposal. Some saw it as a unique opportunity to consolidate AstroMine's position in the sector, while others feared the risks of being too closely aligned with the Empire. Klaus slapped the table with the flat of his hand. We must not forget that these ships are more than just tools. They are symbols of Imperial power. If we use them for our purposes, we expose ourselves to enormous political pressure. Hey, I would be happy if you could give my video a like, leave a comment and subscribe to my channel to stay up to date.